Welcome to DIY guitar making at Eric Schaefer Guitars. Today I thought I'd do something fun and show you guys around the shop, give you guys the full tour so you can see a little bit of what it's like behind the scenes here. Also, students who are coming out to the workshops this year can see a little bit of what the environment is going to be like. And hopefully for you guys who are setting up your own space at home for working on guitars, hopefully this little brief tour will give you guys some ideas for the organizational aspects of setting up your garage or basement or wherever you are working on your instruments. One thing you'll notice about my workspace right away is that it doesn't look like your typical garage or basement workshop. There's lots of windows, there's a green carpet, there's really nice trim work on the walls, which is really unnecessary. That's because this space was actually previously the dining area of a restaurant. In 2013, I purchased the property and converted it into the space you see here for doing exactly what I love to do, which is building guitars. The building is 176 years old, and before it was a restaurant, it was a hotel. So I have rooms above the workshop where students stay during the 8-day workshops. Anyway, that's just some interesting facts about this space as sort of a history and background to it. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to take you around and show you the space. Let's start at the front door. So this is my light box. It is inset into the workbench. The switch is down here. I use this primarily for checking light seepage at the joint when jointing book-matched pairs. I also use it for tracing and designing inlays and headstock shapes and things like that. There's an article on my website that shows you how to make a light box like this. I'll link to it in the description. And all of this is the main bench space where I take advantage of as much natural daylight as I can. And in the corner is a side bench which is reserved mostly for doing setup work. And this is the build that I'm currently working on. It is the first in a new series of 25.34 inch scale length cutaways that I'm going to be making. Now I have two shop stands in between the main bench and the setup bench, and this area is really the heart of most of the early stages of the build process. They happen in this area between these two shop stands. The one shop stand you see here has a radius dish attached to it, and the other one has the Dan Early Wine vise attached to it, but they're both actually interchangeable, and I can switch out the vise for a radius dish on either one. I did a video on this, on setting up your radius dishes to be used on the shop stand, and I also explain in that video why this has been a beneficial thing for me. So if you're interested at all in that, I would check out that video. I'll link to it in the description. As you can see, most of my tools are hung up on the walls where they are visible and accessible. Like, I don't have drawers filled with tools piled on top of each other. One, because there's no way I'm going to be able to find them that way. And two, that's just not good stewardship of your tools, especially things like rasps and files, especially your chisels and your planes. These are tools that are not meant to be piled on top of each other because you're going to ruin the edges over time. And yes, even for things like files, they get worn down by being stored in a drawer with other hard tools. And to get them up on the wall, you really don't need to make anything fancy. As you can see here, most of what is holding my tools up on the wall is pegboards. One thing I have a lot of is clamps, especially cam clamps and C-clamps. Okay, so let's travel over to the other room, and first you can see here, this is where my wood stove is. This is how I heat the shop in the winter. You can see I have a fire going right now. Also, there's a nice little sofa there, so it's a cool little spot to just kind of lounge and hang out. Here's another bench here in the corner where I do some odd jobs. There's a little bit less natural lighting here, so I'll do things like bending the sides. You can see my side bender right there. Another thing you'll notice is that for a lot of the large stationary equipment that I have two of pretty much everything. In fact, even the smaller tools, hand tools and things like that, I generally have 2 of everything. And the reason for that is because I teach the hands-on workshops where I teach 2 students at a time, so it was kind of out of necessity that I needed to get 2 of everything. But there's sort of a lesson there for everyone, I think, because what I have found from getting all these extra tools is that it has enormously helped my own efficiency even when I'm just working by myself. For example, having the 2 bandsaws, I can set them up with one with a very small blade and one with a much larger blade for doing resaw work and stuff like that. And as you probably know, working with bandsaws, having to change the blade is one of the, well, let's just say it's time consuming and it's a little bit annoying. So having one bandsaw set up for a certain type of work and another one set up for a different type of work is immensely valuable when it comes to just being able to efficiently move from one task to another. And these are my mobile Go Bar decks. As you can see, I've put them on these big stands with wheels so that we can cart them around, and once a glue up is complete, you can kind of just push them into a corner and forget about them while they're curing. And this mess back here is where most of the machines that I use on a regular basis are set up. This relatively inexpensive contractor-style table saw is set up with a specialty blade and fence specifically for fret slotting. Here are my 2 spindle sanders. Again, I have 2 spindle sanders because 2 students need to use them at the same time. If you don't have a spindle sander, get one. I arrived pretty late to the spindle sander game, and I wish I had been turned on to these sooner. And here's my router table setup that is set up specifically for routing patterns with a flush trim bit. And then on this side I have a planer and another router table set up, this time specifically for routing the truss rod slot on the neck blank. So these are all the power tools that see the most use. So I keep them set up back here so that I don't have to fuss with pulling them out and setting them up every time I reach that stage in a build. And this area back here is where I accumulate unimportant paperwork, which I will probably never ever reference again. In fact, if it's any clue as to when the last time I actually looked at this mess, check out this calendar that hasn't been touched since October of 2016. Yeah. This is the wall where I hang safety gear. Eye and ear protection is really important, but the aprons are also nice to have. The respirators I use for the odd occasion when I'm using some sort of volatile finishing substance like lacquer or lots of cyanoacrylate glue. I have a shelf in another room where I store first aid equipment, gauze pads, band-aids, neosporin, things like that. And then of course, no first aid kit would be complete without a 13-pound bag of cat food for Mr. Lance. Okay, now traveling a little deeper into the workshop here. This is the old commercial kitchen from when this used to be a restaurant. And now you can see it's a wood storage area for me. I keep all my wood stickered in stacks, or most of it I should say. Some of it's a bit of a mess in here, some of it's piled up in the corner. But at least the good wood is piled up in stacks. And then in this back room, I plan on converting this separate room into a special area for thickness sanding, which produces the bulk of the dust that is generated from the work that I do. So if I can keep that sort of condensed down to just one room, I can manage that dust a lot easier. At least that's the hope and the current project for now. I'm still in the process of cleaning out this and converting this old commercial kitchen area, adding lighting. As you can see, it's very dark in here, and creating better shelving for the wood stacks and a good dust collection system back here for the heavy sanding equipment. And another good piece of emergency gear is, of course, a fire extinguisher. You never know when or if you're going to need it, and hopefully you don't ever need it, but it's good that it's there. And lastly, if we step outside here, you can see that there is a massive deck space. Students usually hang out here during their lunch break. Also during warm days in the summer, I like to take some of the heavy sanding equipment out here and do some of my work out under the sun in the breeze where the air just carries away the dust rather than having to deal with dust collection myself. This, of course, is another relic of this building's history as a hotel slash restaurant slash bar. As you can see, I'm missing some boards here, so watch your step. I pulled up some boards over the winter to replace the bad ones, and by the time classes start in March, I will have the deck ready to be used again. And that concludes the tour. As you can see, my workshop is not perfect. As always, it's in a state of flux and change. So hopefully you gain some insight here that maybe can help you deal with things in your own shop atmosphere. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video every Friday. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.